Okay, so you want to own a container port. 90% of everything you own was moved by a ship. The food in your fridge, the phone in your hand, the clothes on your back. At some point, they all sat in a metal box on a vessel the size of a city block, waiting to get through a port that someone owns. And here's the part nobody talks about. You don't own the ship. You don't own the cargo. You don't own the trade routes. You own the ground the ship has to dock on. And that's enough to make you richer than most governments. So what does this actually cost? There are 3 ways in. Tier 1. Buy a concession at an existing terminal. A government grants you the right to operate a port, usually for 30 to 50 years, in exchange for a fixed annual fee plus a percentage of revenue. Mid-sized terminals in emerging markets have changed hands for $200 to $500 million. You're not buying the land, you're buying the right to charge every ship that docks on it. Tier 2. Acquire a major facility outright. DP World's Jebel Ali terminal in Dubai handles 19.4 million TEUs per year. That's 19.4 million containers, each one representing someone's goods moving from a factory to a shelf somewhere in the world. Single terminal acquisitions at this scale run $1 to $3 billion, depending on throughput and contract terms. Tier 3. BlackRock just set the ceiling. In 2025, a consortium led by BlackRock acquired 43 port terminals from Hutchison Ports, including the 2 ports at the entrance and exit of the Panama Canal, for $22.8 billion. 43 ports, 1 deal. That's the scale of this industry. Now here's how it actually works. You don't sell anything. You charge for access. Every container that arrives at your port pays a terminal handling charge, a fee for unloading from the ship, moving through your yard, and loading onto a truck or train. That fee runs $170 to $620 per container depending on the port, the size of the box, and where it's going. A busy hub like Singapore or Rotterdam collects that fee millions of times a year. Then there are storage fees, demurrage, when containers sit in your yard longer than the free period, which is typically 3 to 5 days. After that, the importer pays you a daily rate for every box that hasn't moved. Port congestion fees, crane charges, documentation processing, customs facilitation. Every hour a box sits in your facility, the clock is running and you are collecting. And the ships have no choice. A container ship carrying 20,000 boxes can't decide to skip Singapore because PSA International is charging too much this week. The ship has a schedule, a route, and contracts with importers who are waiting on their cargo. Geography is the moat. The port is where the port is. You can't move it, and neither can the cargo that needs to pass through it. The unit economics look like this. DP World handled 109 million TEUs across its global network in 2025. Revenue, $24.4 billion. EBITDA, $6.4 billion. Net profit, $1.96 billion, up 32% year-over-year. PSA International, owned by Singapore's sovereign wealth fund, handled 105 million TEUs in 2025. Revenue up 7%, operating profit up 19%. EBITDA margins of 26 to 30%, in an industry where most physical infrastructure businesses run at 15 to 20. And these numbers don't move with market sentiment or consumer confidence. They move with global trade volume, which has grown every single year since 1990, except 2009 and 2020. Both times it recovered within 18 months. During COVID, when supply chains collapsed and ships backed up for miles outside every major port, operators didn't lose money. They made more, from the containers sitting in their yards for weeks, racking up demurrage fees while importers scrambled to move their cargo. Supply chain chaos didn't hurt port operators, it paid them. Now here's the part of this business that should make you nervous as a competitor and comfortable as an owner. You can't build a new port faster than demand grows. A greenfield terminal, building one from scratch, requires dredging the harbor to the right depth, constructing berths strong enough to handle vessels weighing 200,000 tons, installing cranes that cost $15 million each, laying rail and road connections to the surrounding logistics network, getting environmental permits, navigating 15 different regulatory bodies, and waiting years for shipping lines to actually redirect their routes to you. Minimum timeline, 10 to 15 years. Minimum cost, $1 to $3 billion. And even then you need the shipping lines to show up. The incumbent has a 30-year head start. The geography hasn't changed. The business is, structurally, a monopoly that a government licensed to you in writing for the next half-century. Your main risk isn't competition, it's politics. In 2006, DP World, the government-owned port operator from Dubai, acquired the British company P&O Navigation, which managed 12 American port terminals, including New York, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. Congress voted 62-2 to block the deal. Senators who had never mentioned port security in their careers held emergency hearings. The White House tried to defend the acquisition. DP World, having just paid billions for P&O, quietly sold the American terminal operations at a loss rather than fight a congressional veto. The punchline: as of 2025, approximately 80% of major U.S. port terminals are operated by foreign-based companies. Chinese state-owned firms manage terminal operations at Long Beach, Los Angeles, Seattle, Houston, and Miami. The DP World deal was killed on national security grounds. The Chinese terminals stayed. That's not a security story. That's a politics story. The success story is Greece and Piraeus. In 2016, Greece, drowning in debt, forced by the IMF to sell national assets, sold 67% of the port of Piraeus to COSCO, the Chinese state shipping company, for 1.5 billion euros. At the time, Piraeus handled 1.5 million containers per year. It was the 20th largest port in Europe. Nobody was particularly excited. By 2025, Piraeus handled 6.2 million TEUs. It is now the largest container hub in the Mediterranean. COSCO invested, expanded capacity, brought in Chinese shipping alliances, and turned a mid-tier Greek port into the primary entry point for Chinese goods entering Europe. Greece paid off debts. China got a strategic foothold at the gateway to the EU with a 50-year concession that no government is easily going to cancel. 1.5 billion euros. 4 times the volume. 50-year lease. So what does the math look like for you? Optimistic scenario. You acquire a concession on a terminal handling 2 million TEUs per year for $400 million. Average net revenue per TEU after discounts and concession fees: $120. That's $240 million in annual income. Subtract operating costs, labor, equipment maintenance, crane cycles, IT systems, roughly 65% of revenue, or $156 million. And you're left with $84 million EBITDA per year. That's a 21% return on invested capital. Volume grows 5% annually in line with global trade. By year 10, you're generating $130 million EBITDA on a $400 million investment. You haven't touched a single box. Realistic scenario. Your concession is in a country where the government changes. A new administration renegotiates your fees upward 2 years in. A major shipping alliance restructures its routes and removes your port from their primary rotation. Volumes drop 25% overnight. You spend 3 years in environmental permit disputes blocking your planned expansion. You still make money. Ports rarely go to zero, but your 21% return is now closer to 10. You're running a profitable, stable, low-excitement infrastructure asset, the kind sovereign wealth funds and pension managers love, and the kind no one writes about until a congressional hearing turns it into a national security crisis. So here's what you're actually buying. Not a business, a choke point. The legal, government-licensed right to stand between every ship carrying every product that keeps every city alive, and charge them every single time they pass. 90% of global trade moves by sea. That trade has to stop somewhere to be loaded, unloaded, sorted, inspected, and sent on its way. Whoever owns that stopping point doesn't need to own the ships, doesn't need to own the cargo, doesn't need to know what's in the boxes. They just need to own the ground. DP World doesn't sell anything, doesn't make anything, doesn't ship anything. In 2025, it made $1.96 billion in profit, moving boxes it never touched, through ports it doesn't technically own, on ships it didn't build. The one thing it does own? The lease on the ground the ships have to dock on. And in a world where 90% of everything moves through a port, that's enough.